Good day, my name is Peter Tyrrell. I'm the General Manager of Asia Pacific for Lancer Proprietary Limited, and I'll be conducting today's webinar entitled Partly Cloudy. And in Sydney today it is partly cloudy, but this is not a weather report. It's about how organisations are dealing with having a business solution that is running partially in the cloud and partially on their own applications. The webinar is scheduled to go for half an hour. There's a fair bit of information for me to cover. I don't know whether there'll be any time left at the end for questions, but you are able to type in questions in the GoToWebinar console that you have, and I will follow up to everyone with any questions that are asked and our answers. So let's move into the webinar straight away. First of all, if you've listened to any of my webinars, I like to define what I'm going to talk about up front. So what does cloud mean for your business? In some businesses they use like Office 365, and that's the extent of their use of cloud. It's using Office functions that are provided by cloud providers. It could be thinking of cloud merely as infrastructure, so it's a platform that allows you to have some capability to expand and contract as your business needs, and that your applications are just running on that platform. We can also use it for functions or services that need to work with applications that are running on your own infrastructure. And I'm going to be dealing mainly around that point, where you've got some applications that are in-house and some applications that where you're using or integrating with them are in the cloud. So what do we mean by cloud? Well, this could mean a lot of things to people. As I said, it could be just the infrastructure. It could be using services that are in the cloud. If you go back 10 years ago, we used to call that software as a service. But now, you know, everything like that has that cloud kind of labeling. So I'm going to be talking about services that are in the cloud, or potentially your applications that are in the cloud that need to integrate with your applications that are still running on-premise. So as we start to dig into this, what is partly cloudy? So it's unlikely, unless you're a startup, that all of your IT needs or applications are satisfied by cloud-based services alone. So that means part of it won't be in the cloud. And this means that you have an investment already in applications that are running on your equipment, or equipment that's managed for you in your own data center or elsewhere. So what we'll be really digging into today is how you're going to be able to support business functions that rely on applications that run in-house and in the cloud. It is an interesting conundrum that we are facing today. An example could be that you have your own ERP, but it may use a cloud invoicing service. Well, the way that you're going to be able to achieve this is to be able to integrate between those applications, no matter where they run. So I thought we'd just clarify what we mean by integrate, and it's not a term that is different in IT than it is for the rest of the world. So integrate, straight from the dictionary, means to bring together or incorporate parts into a whole, so a whole solution. Again, uniting or combining into a larger unit, and it's exactly what the third one. These are all just standard functions of the word integrate. So that's what we're going to be talking about, integrating applications no matter where they live. So I've got my little faceless people trying to integrate applications that might be running in-house. There'll be cloud applications or cloud functions, and it's the bit in the middle we're going to be talking about. How do we get these two cogs to turn together so that the whole here for the whole, that is the business solution there. So we want to say, well, how can we make this run sufficiently as possible? Some of the aspects that we need to consider when we're thinking about an integration solution is that it must be able to handle your organisation's applications. There are a lot of different types of solutions out there, companies that will sell you connectors that will go into a certain cloud service. They'll give you certain bits of the puzzle, but it doesn't actually then solve the other end of the integration one. It doesn't make it easier in some cases to integrate into your application, which of course these vendors have no knowledge of, and you wouldn't expect them to. But you need to be able to handle that. And you must be able to handle the different cloud applications. And the cloud applications, there is no standard way in which cloud integration is capable. It's up to the company or the vendor that's written the cloud application to decide how they want to expose functions of the application for integration purposes. And some of these would be using web services. It could be SOAP, it could be RESTful. Others have what we call web hooking as another way, a more basic way of doing it. And some of them only provide more bulk-oriented integration. So there's different ways. And of course, there's no standard content that are in these interfaces. It's up to the individual companies that build them. So ideally, your integration solution needs to be able to handle transactional type integration and bulk type integration. Now transactional, if it's across cloud and in-house, I would be recommending that you're not looking at running a high volume kind of transactional model here, because to be able to drive a high volume across something that's partly cloudy has a lot of challenges. So it'll be great for transactions where you're not looking at a high throughput. For the bulk, that's where you may have non-time critical either data or processes that you want to be able to schedule times at which you will synchronize maybe between what's in your ERP and information that needs to be in the cloud function. So it may be that you are adding new customers to your ERP, and then if you're using invoicing, those customers need to be then added to the invoicing database that's in the cloud. And it would be kind of cool if you could also use this integration approach between applications that are maybe not in the cloud as well, so that you have the whole solution handled. So as we've seen in IT over the years, sometimes we come up with some solutions and they're fantastic for a season. And what I mean by that is you may have various components at different versions and you get them all running perfectly together. Then one of those components is upgraded to a new version and there's a huge amount of work to get it all working together. Well, it's no different if one of those components is running in the cloud. And at today's pace, that proposes a problem, because where you're using in the past components that you may be running in-house, you have some control over when you schedule the upgrading to a new version. But if you're using a cloud provider, you don't have that luxury. Normally they give you, they give you notice they're going to change it, but it doesn't mean that you can kind of say, well, no, I'd actually like to change it 2 months later. You don't. You have to be able to support it when the cloud provider is going to make that change to their function. So that is a challenge that you have to look at. And obviously also on the other side of the integration solution, your own applications aren't static either. They'll move around a bit. So you need to be able to handle both ends of those communication pipes. And you may want to even completely switch clouds. This could be where you're actually moving applications to a different cloud provider. So to kind of sum this up, when you're looking for the integration solution, apart from what it needed to do in the previous slide, you should ensure that it's not going to reduce your organisation's agility. Everyone likes to use the term disruptive, innovative. All of these things tend to kind of revolve around the pace of change. And I covered this in a webinar I did a few weeks ago. The pace of change is relentless today. It's faster than it's ever been. And your organisation, if it can't keep pace with that, it then starts to become slow, not agile anymore. And that's not good for any business. And some of the older enterprise service bus solutions can be very time consuming in being able to change the way in which they operate. What I'd like to do now is just to walk through one possible scenario. So you may actually have an integration solution in place that's on-premise, say. You've got your applications that are on-premise, and you might be using 3 functions or cloud applications, and they could be in the same cloud or different clouds. They could all be on AWS or Azure, or they could be on essentially private clouds that are made available with the application there. So what happens, I'm also talking about being able to integrate. So to get the whole solution for your business, you need to be able to integrate here and here. So what happens if one of your application providers goes up in smoke? And this could be for several reasons. They could go out of business. They could start to become irrelevant to how they help your business. Or they maybe just have a problem with the level of service and you want to change. So that means that you're going to have to replace that with a new cloud and a new app and a new integration one, and you don't really want to be changing everything else at the back end. So I'd like at this point to, we're about halfway through the webinar, I'd like to really start to just change the focus a bit now and start to look at how we manage this integration. And there are 4 kind of areas or components that make up a good integration solution. There's transformation, and that is how, sorry, I've got a typo there, that should be transportation. Sorry, that's how you move data. How do you move it around? The second one is transformation, and that is how you change the data. And what I mean by that is that you might be using a function that has different kind of categorization on the cloud than the way that you hold it in your database. Orchestration, quite often these processes can be require multiple steps, and it would be good if you could essentially string those together into an automated process that may be calling more than one cloud function or back-end function. And of course, across all of this, you need to be able to manage the integration. So you need to be able to say who's allowed to create these types of integration processes, who can change them, who can run them. You might want to look at how often they're fired, how reliable they are, how long they take to run. So all those types of things, you need to be able to really dig into what your integration layer is providing for your business. So transportation, at least I don't have a typo here. That was the first quadrant we looked at in the circle. Once again, I was saying it's talking about data being moved. And if you look at the first 3 here, they're different methods that you can use with a cloud provider. Straight HTTP, HTTPS, but more normally web services or RESTful interfaces. Again, you may also have areas where the cloud provider has some bulk functions, and this might be still supported by something like FTP or secure FTP. You've also got email, and there's various security encryption techniques that also will need to be handled as that data moves. So on the this is just an example from Lancer Composer saying you want to be able to configure how do I describe this transportation method to my integration layer? And this is an example of how we would do it in Lancer Composer. The second part of the quadrant is transformation. And there's different types of transformation. There is the transformation of different, say, file types. There's the data. In what format is the data, and does that need to be transformed? There is conversion of the actual data elements, and that's where you might want to have built-in functions that allow you to kind of remap the way the data is shown. And there is the way of enriching the data. For instance, you might have something that comes in with a certain kind of category, and you want to be able to look up a different file and pass it through to an application with a different value altogether. So being able to visually map this is very helpful. You're going from whether it's a CSV file to XML, which is part of a web service, or any other types of formats, you need to be able to just drag and drop. To be able to do this quickly, we don't want to be doing bespoke programming here. We've got something where even a good level of business analysis would allow a business analyst to do this, and we've actually had business analysts using Lancer Composer to do this type of work. The conversion, in this example, it was doing a conversion from a month of a 2-digit to a month of a text field, but looking at solutions that have essentially rich conversion functions that can be just dropped onto this visual canvas without any programming. So no code is required. And an example of enrichment may be that you've got a category coming in from an external party that is a different way in which you know that category, so you want to be able to look it up and then essentially put the internal category into your system. These are just some examples of the different types of areas of transformation that you need to handle. Orchestration. So as I said before, it may not be a simple one function call or one function invocation when you're looking at integrating to the cloud. So you might have, it could be the same cloud application, but you might be in the one business long-running transactional function, you might need to call it with different interfaces. So you might want to join that into one business process, and it could be conditional steps in there or parallel steps in there. You may want to be able to handle errors in there, either in your program or by alerting people, depending on how the nature of the error. Think of it as workflow for automating these processes. Not the classic workflow when you talk about people being involved, but a workflow between applications. And lastly, the area I covered was administration. And this is really looking at the security of your integration capability. Being able to log it, come back and analyze the log if there are concerns, being able to restart processes if a function fails, having an audit trail, both an operational dashboard that would help you with what's happening now, and a management dashboard where you can actually look at how are my different integration processes performing for me, how much do we use them, how often are there errors, how quickly do they run, things that management will be looking at because it concerns them about the ongoing reputation of your business. So let's have a look at a typical cloud integration. It could be an on-premise application, doesn't have to be ERP. You may have bought it and customized it, you could have written it yourself. And you want to then integrate it with cloud solutions such as NetSuite. And we've done this recently for a company that does logistics planning, and they need to be able to access functions in NetSuite. And so this allowed them to be able to offer their solution both on clients' machines but also in their own cloud. So we actually did a cloud-to-cloud integration for them. you want to be able to create web service integration between the cloud and your on-premise applications, because that is the way you talk with cloud applications. But in some cases, these cloud applications do allow you to do bulk load or download, and quite often this is for synchronization purposes, where you don't actually need it as part of a transaction, but it's more for making sure that the data is in sync, or it's for non-time critical kind of integration. There's also the use of integration. As I said, it wouldn't be neat if you could also use it, not just for cloud, but for other types of integration. And we've seen customers get great payback by removing manual tasks that are still done in their organisations. This could be as easy as someone receives emails with attachments and has to rekey them or reformat them. You've seen with our transformation engine that we can actually do that automatically. We can also read incoming emails and detach those types of files and automatically map them. Address validations, extracting data, changing it to different data formats, because integration with manual tasks is also, there are quite often people that are producing spreadsheets, attaching them and emailing them out to clients. There's also being able to kind of create bespoke functions like Microsoft Access to transform data. So all these types of manual things we can do with the integration layer. So this could be on-premise, non-cloud type of stuff, and it can be with not just thinking within your corporate boundary, but thinking of entities that your company does business with. So it may be that you have business partners and you need to move information between yourself and your business partner. So you can automate a lot of that. We had an example where one of the publishing companies used integration extensively within their organisation, between their applications that are running on different platforms. But as they were a publishing company, they also had their books as ebooks that were published by Google and Amazon. And each month Google and Amazon would automatically generate data for the sales that happened that month, and I think it was using FTP, pushed the files out to the publisher. And obviously Google and Amazon are not going to have a different format for every publisher to give them the data in the format that the publisher wants. You'll get that data in the format that Google and Amazon want to give it to you. And so being able to transform Google and Amazon into the way their applications wanted the data presented saved them man years in effort. So that was it was very good for them. So we're coming towards the end of today's webinar, and I'd like to just kind of look at some of the benefits that may not have come through as I've talked to make sure we capture this. So when you're looking at the partly cloudy, you want repeatable, scalable and flexible solutions, because this is something where the scalability of the cloud is one of the areas where businesses see that as a great thing. Instead of having to scale your own infrastructure, you are riding on the infrastructure by the cloud provider. You want to be able to get rid of any kind of manual processing completely, if possible, because that just causes problems in timeliness and errors. The centralized management of how you run this integration is important, but not the centralized running of it. I want to make that distinction. When I talk about centralized management, it's how you manage it, not that it all has to run centrally. You want to be able to ensure that you can meet agreed service levels, so you want a dependability, and once again that management console gives you the ability to actually even produce levels of service for your different integration flows. The error management, hopefully you don't have any errors, but error management needs to be there, because when an error does occur, you need to be able to react to that quickly, and that's for two reasons. One is it can be costly to reprocess, but it also can be costly in terms of brand damage if you cannot rectify errors quickly. And given an example, though it's not an integration, but given Samsung's ability to rectify their exploding flaming phones, you can see the brand damage of where you are not delivering what is expected by your clients. And of course, faster time to market. Faster time to market is one of the hearts of that integration. You don't want to be doing bespoke programming as part of integration. You want something that's codeless. Okay, and I've brought this into a, I guess, a little bit of an automated diagram here. So you've got your organisation, and you've got some apps there. Oh, there's a cloud. So in the cloud, there might be cloud applications that you need to integrate with, and these aren't yours. You're just integrating between your applications and the cloud application. But there might be some other organisations, and these could be your business partners, or even your own apps that are also residing in the cloud that would need to be integrated. And you could also have external organisations who aren't in the cloud that would need to integrate with you. And lastly, you want to be able to ensure that you can leverage the same integration technology between your own applications. So there you've got Lancer Composer being able to handle all of those types of integration instances. So in concluding the webinar, and it's coming up to the half hour, what should you do? Well, if any of what I've touched on today is something that says, you know, Pete, that actually makes sense to me, I'd like to know more about it, you can self-educate by going straight to our website, which is www.lancer.com. You'll see there up at the high level menu, you can look at case studies, you can look at integration as a product type area, and you can actually do some of your own investigation and see companies that maybe are in similar industries to yours, how they have used our integration services. Also, I would encourage you to contact us directly. We talk to clients every day and help them. We can even do live demonstrations via the web and actually show you how the integration can work for your organisation. My name is Peter Tyrrell, and I've put my direct email address there that you can see, and you can also phone me. That is my direct line on my desk, and I'd be very happy to hear from you. So thank you very much for your attention. It is half an hour up now, so I bid you farewell, and we will be, all the registrants for this webinar will be receiving a link to the live recording in a few days or so when it's ready on the web. Thank you very much.